found the time period really fascinating for this movie, and it made total sense when I watched it. But when did the 1970s aspect come into play? Why was that the time period you chose?
Because it's awesome. When they first came to me, the first draft of the script took place in 1917. My response was, I'm psyched you're making a new King Kong movie, but what makes this different? What makes it special? 1970 is not that different from 1933. And it was just a very different script. It was a great script, but it was just very different. And then I went away for the weekend and I started thinking, and suddenly this idea of like choppers and napalm and Hendrix and like Syrian red sunsets and like colored smoke and Apocalypse Now and King Kong.
Yeah.
And Vietnam War and monsters. I was like, I haven't seen that before. And like as a nerdy dude, I was like, I feel like that's a movie I would just want to see. That's a movie my friends would want to see. And I went and pitched Legendary and Warner Brothers that idea, and to their credit, because they're cool companies, they said, I thought they were gonna laugh me out of the room. I thought they were gonna be like, you're crazy, bye. And instead they were like, you know what, let's do that.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, the helicopter sequence when they first run into Khan, which is in the trailer, so I don't think it's a spoiler, is breathtaking. It is awesome. I had people, at press screening, I had people like gasping and cheering at points. Just walk me through filming that, editing it, putting it together. What was that like?
Thank you. That was insane. That was a sequence the very first sequence I started prevising, and that's something that we didn't really truly finish until like the very last day. And to me, that sequence was just like, if there's gonna be a signature sequence in this movie, first of all, I want all of them to feel unique and to feel different, whether it's like, you know, a gunfight with a bamboo spiders or, you know, a Vietnam military sequence in like a prehistoric boneyard. Yeah. But that, you know, it's like, that's gotta be your signature set piece. And so it took forever in terms of prevising, and then, you know, we shot that sequence over months in multiple different continents with multiple different elements, and it took forever because it was such a complex thing, and you don't realize how hard it is to track like 12 different choppers in the sky with a 100-foot ape and understand what's going on, but like it needed to be a sequence that you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you responded.
I love that you don't hold back on Khan either. You see him real quick in this movie, and he's the biggest we've ever seen him. He's the baddest we've ever seen him. How long was the discussions of how big he was going to be? What was the look of him going to be?
The size came from the fact that everyone always wants to say like, oh, he's big because of like Godzilla and Kong, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, he's big because I wanted you to be able to stand and look at this thing towering over you. And the first decision your brain makes, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, not the fifth, but the first instinct you have is to be like, that is a god.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you look at that God? Do you become the agnostic or the believer or the atheist? Like, how does it break you? How does it split you? So, you know, 100 feet sort of ended up being the size that it was like, oh yeah, that's the size that I would think something's a god, as opposed to a big ape, as opposed to a big creature, but fundamentally a god.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where the size came.
Also, you have more speaking, like consistent speaking roles in this movie, like 10 characters it seems like, throughout the whole movie, than I think any blockbuster has had in a long time. What was it like balancing all that and making sure that the characters each get their own screen time? Because it's really well done.
It was madness. And there was a time when I was screening the film early on to filmmaker friends of mine, and they were looking at these scenes where like 10, 15 actors were walking through a field, and they just looked at me and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, just because like the amount of makeup, props, everything, and we had such an incredible team sort of bringing that together. But yeah, it's a hard thing to balance, and you want to give everyone their moment.
And you also got to make sure Khan gets the spotlight too. I don't envy you for how much you had to do with this.